how much are foundations really allocating to impact investing? That was our next question, and the numbers there remain small. I might even say really, really small. When we asked about if you're making impact investments out of the endowment, what percent is allocated to impact investing? It was just 2%. For those making impact investments out of the program budget, and of course some are drawing from both sources, but for those making investments out of the program budget, just 0.5%, just a few $100,000 at the median foundation. So I think it's fair to say that the story of impact investing for the large private foundations for whom we gathered data is a story actually of widespread but very small scale experimentation, not significant investment. But what we saw is that the overwhelming number of large foundations have no negative screens whatsoever on any industry to exclude different companies or organizations from their investment portfolio. Of the 17% who do, most are excluding tobacco companies, and actually only 3 respondents had divested from fossil fuels.
A system, not a person. The fixation in one of maybe my biggest problem with the leadership training that people receive is the extreme attention to the self. It is essentially a narcissistic and self-indulgent exercise, in my view, where a lot of people want to learn a lot about themselves, self-awareness, skill development. I need to experience this, I need to experience that, I need to learn how to mobilize, I need to learn how to communicate, I need to learn how to make decisions. But I'm arguing that is a simplistic approach to how the world works now, which favors a systemic approach.
In our research, the majority of nonprofit leaders say that most of their foundation funders do not have a deep understanding of beneficiaries' needs, nor do they have a deep understanding of the causes of those needs. The majority of nonprofit leaders also find that most of their foundation funders do not have funding priorities or programmatic strategies that reflect a deep understanding of beneficiaries' needs. And on the one hand, it might seem easy to discount the nonprofit perspective here. Nonprofits are closer to the ground. They should have a deeper understanding of beneficiaries than foundations should. When we shared these findings with foundations, we heard a variety of reactions, including that one. While 3/4 of foundations in our research tell us they do support nonprofits' efforts to assess performance, more than 2/3 of nonprofit leaders tell us they're not receiving any support, monetary or otherwise, from foundations for these efforts.
We tried to put a framework together that would help practitioners more clearly understand what's really shifting. Right? Jeremy and I, neither of us are thought leaders. We both spend our time working in organizations. We deal with the revenues, we deal with the costs, we deal with the fundraising. But the way we wanted to try and get people to think about the world was not 1.0 or 2.0, but a world that is shifting from a set of behaviors which we can think of as old power to a set of behaviors that we can think of as new power. So, in the old power world, power was a currency. It's zero sum. I've got it, you haven't. In the new power world, power is a current. You never truly own it, but if you can shape its flow, you have extraordinary influence.
We get asked whether we truly believe that there's a connection between what's happening inside a foundation and grantees' experiences working with foundations. It's a question raised often in wondering whether the distinctive pieces of a foundation's culture, the good, the bad, the idiosyncrasies, whether those things translate out to grantees and others. In other words, the people that staff foundations and the choices that they make, that all of you make, matter. The way staff work together and the group culture you build matters. The influence of those things is felt by your grantees. And so by extension, the consistency of those elements matters as well. And that can be a challenge at some foundations.
How can we be in a situation where at the end of the second term of the first black president, the most powerful cry in the country is black lives matter. We're supporting 3 initiatives that we think might have a chance. And I say it not just to brag on our work, but just to talk about how we've got to break out of these paradigms that are not working. Number one, so our slogan at Dream Corps is simple: close prison doors, open doors of opportunity into a green economy.
So what are your lessons so far from the immigration work? I mean, we're in such a polarized time. There are these efforts going on that are innovative, entrepreneurial, but the polarization isn't going away until maybe the Madison Initiative helps reduce polarization.
I think here's what I've learned. That it's actually, polarization is real, and I don't think it's necessarily diminishing because of the way that that also our media has become polarized, and so people's I think biases and inclinations are reinforced through the media that they consume. But nevertheless, there's no white hat, black hat in this. There are no real, like the Democrats are not always good and the Republicans are not always bad. It's back and forth. Both parties use it as a political football and have since 2001. So that was a learning for me, because I thought, well, surely we just need to advocate with Republicans because Democrats are supportive of DREAM Act and comprehensive immigration reform, and that's not the full story.
We had a board member at CEP who every meeting, a number of years back, every meeting about 2 hours in, he would ask the same question. He would say, effectiveness for what? He wanted to bring it back, I think, to why it matters. It's not about effectiveness for its own sake, he would say. He was worried, I think, about a technocratic approach that might become disconnected from the ground, from the importance of why you all do this work, why we at CEP try to help foundations to be more effective. So he would remind us every meeting, about 2 hours in. And he would say, for a country in which opportunity, education, and health doesn't depend on zip codes or the color of your skin, for a world in which freedom and access to food and water are universal, for economies in which working full-time does not mean living in poverty, for an earth that's sustainable, for a world in which there's more understanding, more peace, less extremism. Effectiveness for what? It's for that. It's about effectiveness for that, for these issues and many others.